Hello, my dearest bachcho, and a very warm welcome back. I know, exams are just around the corner. But hey, don't you worry one bit. We are going to learn this together and make it so simple.
So tell me, are you ready for another one of our super quick, super easy revision sessions? Great, because today we're diving into one of my absolute favorite chapters, Heredity. Let's get right into it.
All right, think about this for a second. Have you ever, just looked in the mirror and thought, hey, I've got my mother's smile, but these curly hair? Oh, that's totally from my father. Or maybe you have your grandmother's eyes. Well, this whole amazing, fascinating mix and match of features, that, my dear students, is exactly what heredity is all about. Now look, I know this chapter can sometimes feel a little tricky, right? With all the new words and those ratios, but you have to trust me on this one. We're going to break it all down, piece by piece, and make it crystal clear. And that's not just a promise, it's a pucka promise. So, you know how every great story has a hero? Well, the hero of our story today, the story of heredity, is this absolutely brilliant man named Gregor Mendel. We actually call him the father of genetics. Why? Because he was the pioneer, the very first person to crack the code and figure out the basic rules of how things like your eye color or your height are passed down from your parents. And you know what's really cool about him? Mendel wasn't some scientist in a fancy high-tech lab with all sorts of gadgets. No way. He was actually a monk who absolutely loved two things, gardening and maths. And he used something so simple, the common garden pea plant, to unlock some of the biggest secrets of life itself. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so let's talk about his most famous experiment. It was really just 3 simple steps. Step 1, he took what he called pure plants, one that was always tall and one that was always short. We call this the parent or pea generation. Step 2, he crossed them to see what their baby plants would look like. This is the first generation, or F1. And finally, step 3, he let those F1 plants create their own babies, the second generation, or F2. See? Super logical and simple, right? So let's zoom in on that first step. He started with parent plants that were pure for that one trait. What does pure mean? It just means the tall plant came from a long line of only tall plants. And the short one? You guessed it, from a long line of only short plants. So he crossed them. Now, what do you think happened? Any guesses? Did he get a bunch of medium-sized plants? Well, this is where it gets super interesting. Surprise! Every single one of the baby plants in that F1 generation was tall. Not a single short plant in sight. Not even a medium-sized one. It was like the shortness trait had just, poof, vanished into thin air. So naturally, this was the big question on Mendel's mind. Where on earth did the shortness trait go? Was it gone for good? This, my dear students, is where the plot thickens and the experiment gets really exciting. Okay, on to the next step of his master plan. Mendel took those tall plants from the F1 generation and let them self-pollinate. Basically, he let them have their own kids. He just had to know, was that mysterious shortness trait really gone forever, or was it just hiding somewhere? And would you believe it? Look what happened. In the next generation, the F2, those short plants, they came back. They magically reappeared. And this is where his love for maths became super important. He started counting, and he found this incredible, consistent pattern. For every 3 tall plants, there was exactly 1 short plant, a perfect 3:1 ratio. So the shortness trait wasn't lost at all. It was just hiding. This mind-blowing result led Mendel to figure out the very first major rule of genetics. He realized that some traits are like the big, strong kid in a game of hide-and-seek, and others are better at hiding. This is the whole idea of dominant versus recessive traits. Okay, so here's the key concept. Pay close attention. The trait that always shows up, the one that masks or hides the other one, we call that dominant. You can think of it as the boss trait. In our experiment, tallness, which we show with a capital T, was the boss. And the trait that gets hidden, that's called recessive. Like shortness, shown with a small t. The little guy only gets to express himself when the big boss T isn't there at all. All right, this brings us to 2 super-duper important words for your exam, butcho, so listen up. The first is genotype. That's the actual genetic instruction, the code itself. You know, the letters, like big T, big T, small t, or small t, small t. The second word is phenotype. That's the physical thing you actually see with your eyes. Is the plant tall or is it short? Genotype is the code, phenotype is the result. Got it? Okay, exam question alert. This one comes up a lot. How do Mendel's experiments show that traits may be dominant or recessive? Now, to give the perfect answer, you just walk them through the experiment. You'd say something like this. In the F1 generation, all the plants were tall. This happened even though they got one factor for tallness and one for shortness from their parents. This proves that the tallness trait is dominant. Then, in the F2 generation, the short trait reappeared. This proves that shortness is recessive because it was just hidden in the F1 generation. That's it. Full marks. But, a brilliant mind like Mendel's doesn't just stop there. He started wondering, what happens if I look at two different things at the same time? For example, does the shape of a pea seed have anything to do with its color? So to answer this, he set up what's called a dihybrid cross. That just means he was tracking two traits. He took a plant that always made round yellow seeds and crossed it with one that always made wrinkled green seeds. And just like our first experiment, what do you think happened in the F1 generation? Yep, only the dominant traits showed up. All the seeds were round and yellow. But once again, the real magic, the big reveal, happened in that F2 generation. This big grid you see here, we call it a Punnett square, helps us predict all the possible combinations. And look, of course he got the ones he started with, round and yellow and wrinkled and green, but he also got brand new combos, combinations that parent plants never ever had, like round seeds that were green and wrinkled seeds that were yellow. And when this genius counted everything up, he found another magical ratio, 933:1. Now, what did this prove? It proved something absolutely massive. It proved that the gene for seed shape is inherited totally separately from the gene for seed color. They don't influence each other. They're independent. So you might be thinking, okay, that's cool for pea plants, but how does this work for us, inside our bodies? Great question. Let's connect Mendel's amazing discoveries to modern biology. The whole secret, the entire blueprint for life, is tucked away in something called genes and chromosomes. I want you to think of it like this. Your DNA, it's like a giant detailed instruction manual on how to build, well, you. Now, a single instruction in that manual, let's say the recipe for making the protein that decides your height, that's called a gene. And all these recipes, these genes, are neatly organized into chapters or volumes called chromosomes. And here's the most important part. You get one complete set of these volumes from your mother and another complete set from your father. All right, now for a question I bet almost everyone is curious about. How is the sex of a baby decided? Is it just random chance? Well, no. In us humans, this is also determined by a very special pair of those chromosomes we just talked about. You see, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes in total. The first 22 pairs are pretty much matching sets. But that final pair, the 23rd pair, is special. These are the sex chromosomes. If you're a female, you have 2 matching X chromosomes. But if you're a male, you have 1 X chromosome and 1 different, smaller Y chromosome. So just remember, XX means female and XY means male. So let's break down how this works. A mother has only X chromosomes, right? So she can only pass on an X chromosome to your baby. That's a given. The father, on the other hand, has both X and Y. So his sperm can carry either an X or a Y. Now, if a sperm with an X chromosome fertilizes the egg, you get XX, and it's a baby girl. But if a sperm with a Y chromosome wins that race, you get XY, and it's a baby boy. So the key takeaway is that the sex of the child is always determined by which chromosome comes from the father. Wow, okay, we have just covered so much ground in just a few minutes, and you guys have been absolutely brilliant. So before we wrap up, let's do a super quick-fire recap. What are the absolute must-remember, most important points from this chapter for your exams? Ready? Here are your key takeaways. Number 1, Mendel's experiments are the foundation. They gave us the rules of inheritance. Number 2, dominant traits can mask or hide recessive traits. Number 3, different traits are inherited independently. Don't forget that magical 9:3:1 ratio. Number 4, our traits are all controlled by genes, which are located on our chromosomes. And finally, number 5, the father's sperm carrying either an X or a Y chromosome is what determines the sex of a child. And that's a wrap. See, I told you we'd make it simple. You are all so bright, and I have absolutely no doubt you are going to do fantastically in your exams. You've totally got this. From my side, all the very, very best. And hey, if this quick revision helped you out, do me a small favor. Hit that like button, share it with your friends who might need it, and of course, subscribe for more simple lessons like this one. Bye-bye for now, bacho!